Hey, how's it going, everybody? Shaun here for another edition of Shaun Solo, and today I want to talk about Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. This is going to be my review for it. It might run a little long, so I apologize in advance, but I don't know. I got a lot of things to say about it. There's a lot of things to say about Metal Gear Solid 5, not just because I'm a huge fan, and I've been playing this series pretty much my entire gaming life, I suppose. You know, I had owned a copy of the original Metal Gear for NES when I was a kid, and then kind of got back into the series with Metal Gear Solid, like most people, like in 97, 98 when that came out. But anyways, yeah, so Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain came out last week. I've put probably like 75 to 80 hours into it, which for me in a week span, like that's a lot. Like it's a testament to how excited I was, but not just that. It's a testament to how actually fun the game is to play, like mechanically. I have a really, I don't know, like diverse opinion about this, I suppose. There's things I love about this game. I guess in broad strokes, I would say that it is an amazing game. It is one of the most funnest open world sandbox games I've maybe ever played. I mean, the breadth of options and how you can go through the game is kind of unparalleled, even with games that are very similar to it. Like, you know, a lot of people you hear kind of people using Far Cry 3 as like kind of a shorthand, Far Cry 3 and 4, in terms of like the style of gameplay when you're trying to get into encampments or take out outposts and stuff like that. So there's some crossover there. There's a little bit of similarity, but it's kind of like they took these concepts that have been in open world gaming for the past like 5 years or so and just kind of perfected everything. It is by far the most polished Metal Gear game ever. Mechanically, it's the most polished. It's kind of makes good on the promise that the series has always been making. Have always made? There you go. That's how you say that. You know, because it's always been flirting with like these kind of, I don't know, realistic mechanics and options, but it never really was able to successfully execute on a lot of stuff. You know, the most mechanically impressive probably up to this point was Metal Gear Solid 3. And there was just tons of stuff you could do in there. There's tons of different systems. Everything from, you know, how you healed yourself to the Octocam stuff. Or not the Octocam, but just like the different camouflages you could use and like eating, and, you know, eating animals and stuff like that. You know, but a lot of that stuff, while they were always cool, they always seemed very superfluous. But with Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, what we have is kind of a situation where the systems are dense and meaningful and useful, you know, in ways that they never happened before. Like I just said, it was always kind of superfluous, all the kind of extra things you could do in the games. And now there's kind of a reason to do a lot of stuff. You know, the game actively encourages you to kind of mess with the systems and things like that. I guess before I go any further, I just want to say that I think the game is mechanically amazing. It is one of the funnest games I've ever played. The game of it is amazing. It's fantastic. But what do I come for when I go to a Metal Gear Solid game? Like, what is the thing as a series fan that I'm looking for? I'm looking for a crazy, deep, well-told story. I think Metal Gear Solid 5 completely drops the ball in this respect. I'm not going to get into it here in spoiler fashion. Maybe I'll either do it at the end of this video or I'll make a separate video and do maybe like a story discussion. I'm just going to kind of focus on the gameplay, but I just wanted everybody to know, as a Metal Gear Solid fan, that I found that narrative disappointing. Not necessarily the story that's being told, but how it's told. The things like replacing codec calls with the cassette tapes, from the sparseness of the story, from Kiefer Sutherland's performance, which it could make sense, like, you know, but I have to kind of spoil the story to kind of get into that. Even though I think the game really foreshadows it in a pretty heavy-handed way, but I'll talk about that either later in another video. But yeah, I was really disappointed with that stuff. But having said that, though, it's a testament to how good the game is that I still put in as much time as I have in just a little over a week. It was a week and 9 days. I've put in like 75, 80 hours of actual playing the game because it's just so much fun. I did a little Facebook post when I was about 30 hours into it, like 3 or 4 days ago, and I kind of just talked about how easy it is to lose time. Like, I would sit down at like 10 o'clock at night, and I would be like, oh, I'm just going to do a couple missions or whatever. And then before I knew it, it would be like 5 o'clock in the morning. That happened to me twice, where I was like, holy shit, like, it's 5 in the morning. What the hell just happened? Where did all that time go? It's that engrossing. On a myriad of different levels, too. Because it's not just the gameplay, like I said, it's got a lot of dense systems that are actually useful. Like, you can make use of everything, and it really encourages this kind of, like, play any way you want dynamic that the game is presenting. And it's the most fair in that way, I suppose. Because every game, there's a lot of open world games that say, like, well, you can do whatever you want, and you can tackle these things in any way you'd like, right? But there usually is kind of a linearity even in that respect for a lot of games. If you take something like Shadow of Mordor, or, the Arkham games, or even Far Cry itself, like, yeah, there's a lot of options, but at the end of the day, there's only really one way to go about it, Because mostly, like, in Far Cry, for instance, like, when you take out an enemy outpost, you have to kill everybody. Metal Gear Solid 5, you don't have to do that. I mean, if you want to take the outpost, but it's not a mission objective to do that. They're usually just kind of like barriers to you to get to where you want to go or where you need to go, or, whatever. So, but like the amount of options you have, like you can comfortably stealth this game, but you can also comfortably play this as an action game, a third-person action game, just as easily. I'm kind of in the middle myself. My playstyle, I'll usually half stealth it, half action it, depending on like kind of my frustration or if I'm just feeling impatient. It kind of depends on my mood, and I like that the game affords me the opportunity to kind of play how I want to play it. In a way that, like, I just never expected, because there's a lot of extraction missions, so there's a lot of times where you gotta sneak into a base and get, like, a prisoner or something and get them out. And, I mean, you can do it without ever setting an off alarm, without ever getting caught, if you're patient enough, and it's a reasonable thing to do. Or you can just kill everybody and go guns a-blazing, and then extract the guy with a Fulton or something. Which is another thing, the Fulton system, which is connected to your mother-based system, is a lot of unexpected fun. 75, 80 hours in, I'm still, like, having fun just Fultoning guys and animals and stuff and sending them back to my base, and trucks and, like, tanks and all sorts of fun stuff. Like, I did not expect to enjoy, like, the base building as much as I have, because that's not usually something I really care about, because I kind of feel like in a lot of games it's really, like, grindy, and it kind of, I don't know, takes away from the experience. It feels like something I have to do rather than something I enjoy. Which, in the game, it's to your benefit to do that stuff, for sure. You're going to get a lot more out of the game, but you could probably mainline a lot of the story without unlocking the true ending, which is, like I said, I have problems with the narrative, and I have problems not necessarily with the story, but just the way it's laid out to you. I think withholding the true ending behind some sort of arbitrary, like, grind wall is completely bullshit. It's a terrible thing, and not only for just games in general I don't like that, but the Metal Gear Solid game especially. Because there's a good amount of people just like myself that really want to see that story, want to see all the content of that story, but it's way too easy to just miss entire swaths of things, and then it makes kind of a vague story even vaguer and harder to kind of grasp if you miss certain things, if you miss certain character beats. For instance, like Quiet being a kind of semi-optional character is kind of a problem. It makes, like, all that, like, weird, like, pervy old Japanese man stuff, or not. I mean, not really. It's no worse than, more egregious than a fucking beer commercial. So, like, I don't understand, like, really what people's outrage. And there's a superficial reason why she's half naked, and then there's a subtextual reason And I'll probably get into that another time, either in the story video, or actually I was thinking about writing something in defense of Quiet's character. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. Let's get back to the game. Let's get back to the goddamn game itself. But yeah, I did not expect this kind of game out of a Metal Gear Solid game in the series. I did not expect it to be this well polished. I did not... Like, this game could have gotten, like, terrible reviews and scores. I still would have bought it, honestly. Like, you know, that's just... I have a blind fanship for it, and I would have grinded through a shitty game to see the story. So, I was really pleasantly surprised when, from kind of the get-go, it's super engrossing. Mechanically, like, the gameplay. It's awesome. It's amazing. In fact, I have a hard time thinking of something I've just had this much fun with. You know, it's called open world. It's kind of open world. It's not really open world. It's a little bit more linear and a little bit more, like, a little smaller than a lot of kind of more modern open world games. It's a little bit more directed. But I think it's a smart kind of design choice, because you always have something to do. Whether you're just running around Afghanistan or Africa, or you're going to do side-offs or missions themselves, like, you will always be encouraged to actually play the game. So you're always given opportunities to go and, like, basically just find a way to deal with, like, the guards and stuff. Because that's a large part of the game. It's just, how do I deal with guards? How do I deal with infantry units? How do I deal with tanks? Like, and what are the creative ways I can do that? That's really kind of the crux of the game, and by having kind of a controlled sandbox, the action never slows down. So the pacing of the game actually comes from the gameplay, rather than narrative pushing. And I think it's really well designed in that respect. It's not as open, because I would even get frustrated sometimes. It's like, well, it's an open world, but, like, then they do that open world thing where it's just like a giant mountain, and, like, you can't, you know, there's no way to really get around it this way. So I have to track, you know, 2 miles around this fucking thing just to get to an outpost. Like, I ran into stuff like that. I would be frustrated sometimes. You know, you have kind of a travel companion. You have, like, the buddy system, which is Quiet, D-Horse, D-Dog, and then you get D-Walker, which is, like, kind of a mini Metal Gear machine that you get at a certain point in the game. And you can upgrade them, and they do all sorts of different things. The thing is, like, you are probably, once you get, especially D-Dog, bringing the horse with you starts, like, because I didn't really use the horse too much, like, honestly. Like, yeah, I could get around a little bit faster, but the likelihood of, like, getting caught or just kind of blowing my own cover was just higher than I wanted to deal with, and then I would miss a lot of stuff. I would miss a lot of, you know, because there's a collection aspect of it, the game, where you're collecting herbs and stuff like that for your mother base, and I didn't really want to miss things, so I was on foot most of the time, and the world isn't so big that I found it really that much of a problem, because at the end of the day, like, I would just I'd finish what I was doing, I'd call in a helicopter, have it pick me up, go back up to my helicopter base, I'd just pick the next mission, and then just get dropped off closer to where I wanted to be. And that's just the kind of the way I want it. I kind of wish, though, that you didn't have to go, like, back into the helicopter to choose a new landing point or a new destination. I kind of wish they have this thing on Mother Base. If you call in the helicopter, you can hold in the square button on the PlayStation 4. You can hold in the square button, and then you can just choose another place to go on your Mother Base. I kind of wish they had that integrated into the actual mission areas. I think that's just because you feel like you're wasting a lot of time. I mean, I don't know really what the impetus is for that. Like, maybe there was some kind of mechanical reason in terms of, like, kind of, like, under the hood type game stuff, like, where it just couldn't render the world fast enough or something. Like, I don't know. That could be a possibility. But back to the buddies. You kind of, like, stick with what you know to a certain degree, which is, I mean, that's going to be different for everybody. And those buddies actually offer a variety of different play styles. Like, so if you, like, the most superfluous one is probably the horse, because it's mostly just for traveling. That's basically all D-Horse can really do. Like, he can poop on the road, and that poop, like, has classic Kojima silliness, where if you shit on the road, you can tell your horse to shit on the road, and then if a car comes by, or a truck or whatever, they'll wipe out and unlock all the dudes out in the truck, and you can go Fulton them and Fulton the truck and stuff like that. So there's things you can do with D-Horse in that way. But for actually, like, doing side ops and missions, you're probably going to stick with either D-Dog or Quiet. I didn't really use the Walker very much, which seems like the most aggressive kind of buddy that you can have in terms of what you can do, because once you upgrade it enough, you can just go guns a-blazing and like kind of play it like almost like a mini mech game, and you can just go wipe out huge swaths of people and just clear bases that way rather than taking a more tactical approach. Quiet as a sidekick pretty much almost breaks the game, actually. And I liked Quiet. I like her as a character, but I also like her as a buddy, because if you're really frustrated, or you're just really bored, or you just want to kind of make some progress, have Quiet be your buddy. Quiet will take out almost everybody. She will, like, which is a good thing and a bad thing, because when you first get Quiet and you haven't upgraded her sniper rifles yet, there's an option for a tranquilizer one. So I was trying to get, like, you have to get specialists for your mother base, and these specialists will help you level up their like specific areas of skill, and that allows you to develop more items and weapons and whatnot. So I was going to this base trying to look for specialists, and I just completely forgot that, like, and I had Quiet, and I was like, oh, because she's good backup, she's amazing backup, and because she sits on a perch, and she'll just sit there and snipe everybody, whether or not you ask her to, basically. As soon as you get caught and you're in conflict, she just starts shooting dudes. But I was trying to get a specialist so I could fold them out and put them back to the base, and I totally forgot, or I just didn't think about it. It was like when I first got Quiet, and, you know, I get caught because I'm trying to sneak around, I'm trying to sneak up to this dude, I get caught. Quiet just basically massacred everybody, and yeah, so that was kind of a bummer for me. Even guys, I would trank them. I'd go into reflex mode, which is the slow motion mode. When you get caught, you have like 10 seconds basically to take, you know, whoever caught you out. And I'd trank them. I'd see the little Z's over their head, and then she would shoot them while I was still in reflex mode. So I kind of led me to be frustrated with quite a few times. D-Dog is kind of like a sonar. It's kind of like classic Metal Gear sonar, where he will tag enemies for you and let you know what's going on. He tells you if there's medical plants like around, you know, stuff like that. He works really well if you do it in congruence, you know, if you upgrade your iDroid, because you're the intel team from your base. If you have enough guys with high enough intel skills and you've leveled that up enough, they start telling you, like, you know, general enemy areas. It starts telling you where you can find medicinal plants, etc., weapons, all that kind of good stuff. So it's like such a dense fucking game. Like, there's so many crazy things you can do. It's really incredible. What else was I going to say? Yeah, so back to D-Dog. D-Dog kind of, like, acts as that. And you can, once you upgrade him, you can have him kind of distract enemies or even go attack enemies, which would also cause a distraction. Because that's another big part of the game where it's not like other stealth games in the sense that, like, you really do have freedom. Like, so I could take up a grenade launcher and fucking shoot something on the other side of the base. A bunch of dudes are going to go rush over there. It's going to thin out the herd for, you know, say I want to get in on the left side. I can go make a distraction on the right side. It's going to cause people to go check it out. It's going to thin out the herd. So I'm able to kind of sneak through on the left side and get into my objective or whatever it is I'm looking for, whether the prisoner or blueprints or finding, you know, a character or something like that. So that was really, really cool. It was really... that, like, it encouraged that stuff, and it didn't penalize me for it. It didn't feel like there was really any fail states. You know, there was always a way to get out of something. There was always a way to think on your feet and be creative. There's always something else to do, like another approach you can take, even in the moment. You know, even if you feel like you fucked something up, you can always come back from it. And I thought that was really awesome. I was really, like, pleasantly surprised by how fair it was. You know what I mean? Like, it's the most video game of a video game I've played in a while, like I kind of said before. It's the most game in terms of, like, real freedom of choice and really being able to make your own decisions. You know, it does, like, there's an aspect to it that's a little bit redundant, you know. Like I said, like, most of the time, that's what you're dealing with. You're just dealing with, how do I get either past these guards, or how do I take out these guards? Like, how do I just deal with, like, the AI? That's the vast majority of what you're doing. For for 90% of the game. But just like I said, the breadth of options kind of doesn't make it feel as redundant as it could, and that's going to depend on the player. Depending on how experimental you are, how much you want to try to break the game. Like I said, I think quiet breaks the game as just a thing. She's almost like an easy mode, along with the chicken hat thing you can wear that will kind of also make the game easier for you. The chicken hat is this thing that you can put on, and you actually have to wear a chicken hat while you're playing the game, and it'll make it so the guards don't notice you up to 3 times. You basically have 3 times to fuck up before the guards will take notice of you. But yeah, that's really I guess the crux of it, man. I mean, it's in terms of going back to the systems and stuff, the upgrades and what you can do with your mother base. I mean, it's cool that you can walk around your mother base and stuff, and there's actually things to do. There's some shooting gallery stuff. They're actually included in the side ops. You can get some money for it, but there's also little rough diamond things, resources you can find whenever you build a new platform. It's kind of behooves you to go check it out. Which is a good time waster, honestly. If you're trying to wait for a weapon upgrade to finish, or you're waiting for, at a certain point, you can build an assault team, and they can go out and do kind of these assault missions, kind of like a Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. And they will, they get money, and they can go recruit people, or they get more resources, and depending on how strong your team is, there's a success percentage that you'll be able to observe and stuff like that. But a lot of the times those things take anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour. So if you're trying to waste time waiting for something like that to happen, or waiting for something like that to come through, then it's a good way to waste some time. Like I keep saying, waste time. So you can go, your mother base is worth exploring. And there's actually a lot of cool things you can do on the mother base, even just eavesdropping on your soldiers, your troops. Just kind of hang out around some of the guys, and if you're, like I said, if you're trying to waste some time, they'll talk about what's going on in the story, and they'll talk about Quiet, and they'll talk about D-Dog, and they'll talk about kind of the history. They'll talk about some of the backstory, which was cool. It's cool, just to see that it feels like it's kind of alive, in a way. Where, granted, you're going to hear the same conversations a few times. I kind of wish there was more of that stuff, but it's kind of a neat thing nonetheless, I suppose. For me it was anyways. And and also, you want to go see your dudes so you can raise your morale. I don't know exactly the ratio of how that affects your team or the guys, or if that really matters all that much. I don't know if it really matters if you're concerned with their morale or whatever, but I would always go back to Mother Base, kind of regroup, take a break, but I didn't want to stop playing the game. I wanted to take a break just from the action, because it can get really stressful. It can get kind of tense sometimes. So I take a breather. So I go back to Mother Base, kind of go explore one of the new platforms I built, and do some resource mining on the base, and then listen to some guys talk, and then go back into the mission and start playing, or kind of just manage my staff or whatever, because that's another thing. You build up your staffs, and you can go and manage them. They all have kind of a letter rating based on their skill set and what unit to be best served in. So it definitely is a good thing to check into every once in a while. Most of the time, it will automatically assign the best people for the best place. But once you start filling your base up, it stops doing that, because there's not enough slots in their respective specialty fields or whatever. So you kind of have to. You can go in and micromanage a little bit, which is cool. It worked. For me, it worked really well. Because that's the thing about this game that is the disappointing thing, because of all these options, it oftentimes you can become kind of overwhelmed by things, with the systems, with the variety of missions, with the choices. You're what do I do next? What do I do? And the game is not very good at explaining a lot of this stuff to you. You kind of have to just fumble through the menus and kind of do it themselves. Menus are a little clunky. I don't really know what else you would do, though, to facilitate certain things. Just because there is so much stuff. It is so dense. I don't know how you would better that menu system. I wish there was... Sometimes I do wish there was kind of some... I don't know. I mean, it's something you you could do on a PC, you really with a keyboard and mouse, but you really would have a harder time doing it with a gamepad, like making more like hotkey type things for just like calling in a helicopter or whatever, because that can sometimes get like aggravating. What's another negative thing? I would say, oh, boss fights. There's really no boss fights in this game. Sorry if that's a spoiler. It's not meant to be a spoiler, but there are no real boss fights. They have like the Skulls unit, these kind of like zombie monster, like you don't know if they're really like if there's anything paranormal about them or not, but like, and they look really intimidating, and they did a really cool job like with how they presented them in the trailer, but they fall completely flat in the game. And those are really like your boss fights. But actually, the first one I played, the first time I had to fight the Skulls, whenever they come, there's a giant mist that kind of surrounds them, and so it almost creates kind of like a sandstorm thing. Because in the game, the sandstorm visibility gets low. Nobody can really see. You can't really see each other. You have a hard time seeing the guys, but they don't really see you, even if you're like super close to them. If you're when you're sneaking into a base, sometimes it's you're fortunate enough, like a sandstorm will come in and be like, oh, sweet, I know where I'm going, so I'll just run, and nobody will see me, and I'll at least be able to get from A to B. I might have to get my way out, but I can get in. But so that happened, and like, and I was fighting them, like kind of, but I was kind of edging my way back towards the like exit area, and I just took off running. So I just bolted, and when I bolted, I left the battle area. And that's how I won. That's how I resolved it. I didn't have to fight them. So that's cool. It's cool that I have that option, I suppose. Like, that was kind of neat. But honestly, I didn't know that until I read other people, and they're like, oh, you can Fulton the Skulls, and so I was like, holy shit. I didn't really think you could do that. For some reason, I was thinking, like, oh, these are just probably these unbeatable things, and whatever. I mean, I probably spent, like, a minute fighting them, and then I was like, oh, I'm gonna get the fuck out of here. And I could, and it let me. It didn't say, oh, leaving mission area, or it didn't block me off in some kind of arbitrary way or anything like that. Like, so I thought that was really a neat thing that I didn't, like, so on my playthrough, like, I had my own experience with it. Other people's had their own experiences with it. That was really cool. Like, that's awesome for a game like this. Like, you can do anything. A lot of people know this, like, to get quiet, you have to have kind of like a sniper battle with her. It's supposed to kind of be slightly reminiscent of, say, your Sniper Wolf battle from Metal Gear Solid 1, kind of, or the end from Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. But, like, I found, which I did not know that this was a thing before I figured this out. So I was not having trouble. I was in that mindset where it's like, I can play this game kind of however I want. So I just wanted to try something out. I was just curious. So I get into the sniper battle. Like, when you first enter it, like, quiet is in a specific spot. So I tagged her with my camera, and then or my goggles or whatever. And I tagged her, and I laid down, and I called in a supply drop on her fucking head, and it worked. She dropped 2 supply drops on quiet. She's out. I didn't know that I guess there was like a Kotaku article. There was some, like, gaming people were talking about it, but I had no idea because I went dark. I had to kind of go away from a lot of stuff, and I had to, like, kind of get off of Twitter and shit like that because people were not spoiling it, but kind of unintentionally saying things, and that kind of was just like, and it was like right after release, like this is the next day, so I was like, I am not interested in knowing anything about this yet. Because what I like to do, once I finish something like this, or like something I'm excited about, I like to hear other people's opinions, so I go and I'll try to find, YouTube videos and all that shit. But, yeah, so, like, I figured that on my own, and I was, like, it was this awesome moment. I was so excited about it that I put it on YouTube, not knowing that, I guess, a bunch of other people had done that, which is not really that surprising, but I just thought that was really cool that you could do that. I've heard some people say that's cheating or whatever, but, like, I don't think so. Like, it's letting you use the mechanics of the game in kind of a creative, inventive way. Nothing wrong with that to me. I think that's pretty awesome. I think it's pretty kick-ass. Yeah, but like I was saying, mechanically amazing. Love this game mechanically, and just like you could sit here and talk about it forever. Like just the personal adventures you have with the game. It's very dense. There's a lot of depth to the gameplay that hasn't really been done on this scale. Like, these things have been incorporated in other games in terms, but never taken to this extreme. So that was really cool. Like, just as a gamer, separate from my Metal Gear Solid fandom, like, kind of blown away. Because even Ground Zeroes doesn't really prepare you for what Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain is. Ground Zeroes feels much more kind of like a classic Metal Gear game with better mechanics. Even from the the amount of story that's in that, hour demo, that prologue chapter, from the amount of story to the area that you're in, it feels much more like classic Metal Gear. This feels like something completely different. That's the only thing Ground Zeroes really did is, it's going to tell you what's going on for the beginning of the story. Kind of sets the things in motion. But it also just getting comfortable with how to control Snake. Other than that, there's not a lot of similarity, honestly. Ground Zeroes is not a good indicator of what the Phantom Pain is. It's not. It's not. Which is, I guess, good or bad, depending on, so I was still surprised. I played through Ground Zeroes again, right before, the day before Phantom Pain came out, so Monday night I played through it again, and, had a lot of fun with it. I wasn't, blown away by Ground Zeroes. I liked Ground Zeroes, but that was, it was kind of felt like playing older Metal Gears in the sense I was just more excited to see the story than I was really playing the game, to a certain extent. That's what excited me the most. But yeah, Metal Gear Solid 5, Phantom Pain, even if you do not play Metal Gear games, you don't give a shit about the series, so you're not going to give a shit about the story, it is worth every penny. It is worth the $60. It is worth the time investment. You will have a lot of fun if you are into, any type of, open world or, action stealth stuff, or just action games. I think it's well worth your time. It kind of reminded me a lot of Just Cause 2, which, actually, the team that made Just Cause 2 just made Mad Max, and I've heard middling things about it. I haven't had a chance to play that yet, but Just Cause 2 is one of those games where it's, open world insanity. It's not to that level of insane. Just Cause 2 is, playing the cartoon version of this. This is much more subdued, because Just Cause 2 is just an insanely good time, honestly. That's... that's a game I've never really talked about on here, on this channel, but Just Cause 2 is amazing. And the only reason I got to play it was because of PlayStation Plus, a couple years ago. It's 2012, 2013. I think it was 2012. Yeah, it was a free game, and I played the shit out of that game. Played a lot of that game. But yeah, I'd say go out and get this thing. Even if you're gonna be, I don't want to say much about the story, but because I've heard a kind of a very wide breadth of opinion about that story, and I'm not my distaste for it is a lot different than a lot of people I've seen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end this video here. I think this is as thorough a review as you're going to get from me. I like the game. It's good. Go get it. Worth every penny. Mechanically, worth every penny. It's really cool. It's almost it's really hard to describe because there's so much stuff. You kind of have to experience it for yourself. But if you generally agree with my opinion and you trust me as a gamer, as somebody to, go buy something, I don't know. Somebody, if you trust my advice, I think it's totally worth your time. I think it's worth every penny. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this here. I'm going to upload this, and then I'm going to record maybe even a longer video about how I feel about this story in totally spoiler fashion. I feel like it's a good thing. This is a good thing to separate because this video would just be 2 hours long. Hopefully not. Hopefully I won't talk that long about the story. But, yeah, so we're going to do that. Alright everybody, I'm Shaun, and I will talk to you next time I got something to talk about, which will be the Metal Gear Solid 5 plotline.